Hey everyone, welcome back to Discovering NL with Kevin. I'm Kevin, and in my last video, I had an amazing opportunity exploring Australia's School of the Air, which gave us a fascinating glimpse of just how education works in some of the most remote parts of Australia. If you haven't yet seen that video, you can watch it right here. It's right there. That's the one. Today, we're going to be switching gears a little bit and diving into something that's just, for me, it's intriguing. I'm going to be reacting to a video called Australian Culture Shock, 10 Weird Things About Life in Australia. It's a video by Aussie English, and I'm really excited to see what surprises this video has in store for us and to learn more about the quirks of Aussie life. As always, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our future adventures. And of course, as a quick reminder, please be sure to check out worldvirtualtours.online/Kevin, where you can join me in my free virtual tours of Newfoundland and Labrador. Go ahead, check that out. The link is also in the description of this video. And my next tour, which is going to be on the 21st of August. So depending on when you're watching this video, how close that might be, I'm actually going to be doing more of a webinar-based tour. I'm going to be talking about the Indigenous history of Newfoundland and Labrador. In my last video, in the comment section, somebody actually commented about this one right here. This is, in fact, the Mi'kmaq flag, the national Mi'kmaq flag of the Indigenous peoples of Canada. So it's a national Canadian flag, Indigenous peoples, the Mi'kmaq, First Nations, First Peoples. They were in Atlantic Canada, some in as far south as some of the eastern northern points of the United States of America as well. And I am a proud member of the Mi'kmaq community. So yes, thank you for pointing that out, for noticing that flag. This flag right here is the Republic of Newfoundland flag. It's green, white, and pink. I'll tell you all about that another time. And this right here is the current Newfoundland flag. It has some resemblance on that of the Union Jack, which some of you might be familiar with those blue triangles there. Just goes to show the history that Newfoundland has with the United Kingdom. Of course, we were a dominion of Great Britain up until 1949 when we became part of Canada. So, yeah. Anyways, let's just get into the video that we're all here to watch and here to react to. And without further ado, here it is. Oh, that one.
What's going on, guys? I'm Pete from Aussie English. Welcome to this episode today where I'm going to be talking about culture shock in Australia. Let's get into it.
I should come up with an intro. I should make an intro for my videos. What do you think? Maybe? Short one like that? Do I need one?
Right, so I was recently chatting to my wife, trying to come up with a list of things that she had culture shock with when she came to Australia. So if you don't know, my wife is originally from Brazil. Hey, Hakel, if you're watching. And so she came to Australia, and obviously Brazil is a different country, different culture.
I just want to see those books back there for a second to see if there's anything there that I'm familiar with. I don't think there are. Oh, True Gert. I know that book. I think that's it, but he's got a lot of Australian-based stuff up there as well, which is kind of cool. That's a good question, though. Is there any books that you recommend that I read about Australia? Let me know. I'll see if I can find them in my local bookstore. And yeah, that'd be great. I look forward to that. And don't forget, of course, I'm doing over on Instagram and Facebook. I'm having a giveaway. So when I reach 500 followers on those platforms, if I reach 500 on Facebook, I'm doing a giveaway. If I reach 500 on Instagram as well, it'll be a second giveaway. It's going to include a Newfoundland theme pack, and it's actually going to have some books in there about Newfoundland and Labrador as well. Yeah, head on over to the Facebook. You can see the link in the description of my video here. Go ahead and give my page a follow, and you'll be entered instantly for a chance to win that pack once I reach 500 followers. I am noticing he's got an empty Vegemite bottle over here with pens in it. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I had fun trying Vegemite in the video that my wife and I did reacting to Australian foods. If you haven't seen that yet, that one's right here. Check that out. My wife and I reacting to Aussie foods, snacks. It's great.
when she got to Australia, there were a bunch of different things that she found strange, cultural aspects of Australian life that she found different, weird, strange.
Oh, is it the Grand Marquis? I know that book. Huh. Change the angle. Saw a book I recognized.
So I made a list, and now let's go through 10 of those things, okay? And let me know in the comments below if you found them weird as well. All right. Number 1, cars are incredibly cheap secondhand in Australia. So cars in Australia are actually really expensive when they're new, at least as far as I know, comparatively speaking, especially if you get into luxury cars like European luxury cars like Mercedes, BMW and Audi. In Australia, we used to have the Ford and Holden manufacturers here building the cars in Australia. They no longer do that. When they did that though, the government put tax on any cars that were luxury cars more than $60,000. And so you'll find that a lot of these cars from overseas that are luxury cars, especially those from Europe, will be very expensive compared to other places in the world. She also found that second-hand cars were incredibly cheap.
Okay, 2 things. Number 1, no, it's not the Grand Marquis. That's Macquarie. Number 2, I bought an SUV 3 summers ago, my wife and I, $54,000 SUV, and it wasn't cheap. Oh, good Lord, I don't know why we did it. All-wheel drive where I live, it's all hills, lots of snow in the wintertime. You need all-wheel drive, but we kind of wanted to go with a bigger one that was more roomy, more spacious, so we went with that. But I'm going to wait and see what he says about resale, because depending on how old the vehicles are here, resale value, I mean, you can buy cheap vehicles here, easy secondhand vehicles for $1,000. Might need a little bit of work, and they're probably 10 plus years old at that price. But yeah, let's just see what he's got to say more about those used vehicles for sale.
In Brazil, cars, whether new or secondhand, are apparently much more expensive, relatively speaking, than they are here. For instance, when I bought my secondhand Ford Falcon that I got recently, I recently gave it away though, but when I bought that secondhand, it was about 12 years old and it cost me $3,000. When I bought my first Holden...
So that's not unlike here. Again, depending on... Now, I will also say this. I'm not sure. I'm not yet fully familiar with your climate, winters and things like that. Here, winters are brutal, and salt and sand are used a lot throughout the winter, which can cause rust and build up of rust. So vehicles don't last overly long here, and I think that rust buildup is one of the reasons that causes the value of the cars to decrease. My wife and I started putting these coatings on our vehicles every year in the fall to protect that from happening to our vehicle. So when our vehicle, like for instance our SUV I mentioned, when we built up equity and we want to resell it and get another vehicle, something a bit more fuel efficient maybe, we won't have to worry about that rust issue. So we'll have that to go with the resale value of our vehicle.
Wagon. Again, it was about 18 years old and it cost me $2,500. So it wasn't very much at all. So there you go. In Australia, cars, if they're secondhand, can be incredibly cheap. Number 2, cuts of meat. This is one that totally caught me by surprise. I had never thought about this, but the cuts of meat in Australia are very different from how they are in Brazil. One example was when I was looking up how to do Brazilian barbecues in Australia. I wanted to buy some meat and I wanted to try and do them authentically Brazil style, churrasco. I tried to get the cut of meat for picanha. Picanha is a style of Brazilian barbecue where they buy the rump part of the beef, like from the bull, right? And they put salt on it, there's fat on the beef, and they do it on a barbecue. I tried to go and get this, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't find the picanha cut of meat at any different butchers that I went to. So I had to specifically ask them to get the entire part of the cow that they normally chop up into different cuts and remove that part for me to then use, because actually for them, they would chop it up and use it as porterhouse steaks, which were cut through that slice of meat, usually like this.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way it is here too. The porterhouse steaks, very familiar with that. I'm not sure about that other cut he just mentioned. I'm gonna have to take a deeper look into our deli and find out.
as opposed to taking out the whole section, the rump section, and using that instead. So I had no idea that the cuts of meat in Australia are very different from those in Brazil. And if you want to get the certain cuts of meat that you want to use from...
And I guess it's a good question too. I'd like to learn more about that as well and compare that to here, because you guys love your barbecue, your Barbies. And I'd love to know, what do you normally fry on your Barbies? Let me know in the comments down below. What do you normally fry in them? If you got any great recipes, ideas, cuts of meat, things like that, let me know. I would love to have a barbecue and try to incorporate some of the Australian ideas, dishes, foods into that. So let me know in the comments below, what's your favorite thing to throw on the Barbie? What cut of meat? What do you like to season it with? And what do you like as a side? And my wife and I will have a barbecue one day, and we'll try to replicate what we see in the comments. And of course, I'll share it with you all as well on YouTube. We'll share the video of our attempt at an Aussie Barbie. So let me know in the comments.
Other cultures, other countries, you might have to go and specifically ask a butcher to cut them for you. Number 3, toilet paper. Toilet paper. So I was aware that toilet paper isn't a universal thing when I went to Southeast Asia for the first time. I went to Indonesia, where some of the motels and hotels would have toilet paper because I guess they were used to foreigners from the West coming to Indonesia. But a lot of the time they had a hole in the ground and a bucket of water that you would use to wash yourself. Makes sense, but in Australia we...
That sounds so much like what you see, what you hear and read about in ancient Rome. I don't know. That's got me too. But I'm assuming Australia is like us here in Newfoundland and Canada. We've got toilet paper and proper toilet seats.
We use toilet paper. One thing that was shocking to Kel was the fact that in Australia you can flush toilet paper down the toilet, because in Brazil the sewer system isn't set up to be able to handle flushing of toilet paper. So instead of flushing it, you have to put it in a bin next to the toilet. And
oh, just that thought made me sick. Can you imagine going to sit in the toilet and we're gonna
empty that every day. So there you go. Toilet paper was one of those strange things in Australia that you can flush down the toilet. Number 4, coffee culture in Australia. Any of you guys who have come to Australia and spent a significant amount of time in some of the big cities in particular, like Sydney and Melbourne, will know that we are mental. We are crazy about our coffee. We take that stuff seriously.
I don't drink hot drinks. I'm throwing that out there right now. My wife will tell you, I don't drink coffee. I don't drink tea. I don't drink cappuccinos. Seldom, rarely, ever, even a hot chocolate. I just don't like hot drinks. I do like cold drinks. And I just finished this from Tim Hortons before I started the video. So we talk about coffee, Tim Hortons in Canada. I'll have to talk about that sometime with you all. But yeah, I had a cold drink from there. Frozen lemonade, actually. But my wife loves tea, and I'm surrounded by people who love coffee. You know, here in Newfoundland, in Corner Brook, where I should say where I live, we used to have a Starbucks. We no longer have a Starbucks. We have Tim Hortons coffee, which is the biggest. Then there's a Robin's coffee, which is another chain similar to Tim Hortons, but not quite as popular here. We've got McDonald's has coffee here. And of course, you know, you've got A&W with coffee, and there's a few other small local coffee shops. I did have a chat with my wife about what we're going to put in that gift bag, that prize to give away. And she mentioned that just north of us is Grossmore National Park. And I did a tour of Grossmore National Park, a virtual tour, just recently over on my World Virtual Tours page. And I will say this much. Not only is it beautiful, they have a great selection of coffees right there from Grossmore. So my wife said, we got to put a bag of Grossmore coffee beans in that prize pack to give away. And she's absolutely right. So again, over on my Facebook page, if you go and follow me over there, link in the description, you can be entered for a chance to win that once I reach 500 followers. But yeah, coffee is big here too, huge here. Just not me. I'm not a coffee drinker. Iced coffees I like.
There are probably hundreds of cafes in the CBDs of Sydney and Melbourne alone. The quality of the beans that are used, the variety of different coffees that you can get, and the artisanry that is used, the skill with which people are trained up to make the coffee is pretty much as good as it ever gets anywhere in the world. At least I'm told, right? I used to work in a cafe, and that was...
So that's something that's not overly big here where I live, but there are other parts, like for instance, Starbucks is probably more inclined to teach the way this guy just talked about it. But yeah, here it's just like, throw in a percolator, hit a button, copy, there you go. No real skill. So that's interesting to know. My wife would love that. And my best friend who travels everywhere I go. My wife doesn't travel much. She's perfectly fine living here and never leaving. I love to travel. So I often travel with my best friend. The two of us will go. I'm sure he's going to come with me to Australia, and I'm sure my wife will as well when we finally make the choice, the decision to go to Australia. But he's going to love that. He is absolutely going to love that kind of coffee. He's a big coffee drinker.
Was one of the things they prided themselves most on, the quality of their coffee. So it may be a shock when you come to Australia that the coffee is very, very good. Not everywhere, but in a lot of places. Probably not very good if you go to Starbucks, because that's American style and...
Just threw that way out the window there, didn't they? I said maybe Starbucks, but unless Starbucks is different in Australia than it is here in Canada and in the US, I don't know. But I guess if I go to Australia, I have to try coffee, whether I like hot drinks or not, just to see what he's talking about. You let me know. I mean, is he right on this? Like in the comments, are you a coffee drinker? Have you tried coffees elsewhere? If you've traveled, and what has it been like to try coffees in different places compared to what you're familiar with back home in Australia?
Americans, they have their own way of doing coffee. Number 5, barbecues at camping grounds and at the beach.
Huh?
So again, I grew up in Australia.
You guys really love your barbecues. Wow.
Yeah. I used to go camping all the time, several times a year with my parents. We would go to places in the bush, forests, national parks, places like Wilson's Promontory in Victoria. Every time you go to those places, there tend to be places where you can barbecue food, you can cook food. Quite often they have gas, you might have to put some money in there to be able to use the gas. Maybe you have to bring your own fuel for the barbecue, there might be some places, campsites where you...
So y'all got public barbecues? I mean, I know there are stereotypes, and I did cover a video on that as well. But is it really that big? Like, are barbecues really that big in Australia? That y'all got public barbecues? I mean, who cleans them? Do you have to clean them when you're done? Is it kind of like we all just, as a community, we clean them? Is it the public sector workers that are required to come by and clean them? And so, I mean, public barbecues. Wow. Okay, that's the most mind-blowing one so far for me. I love that, though. That's cool.
You have to make the fire yourself, but pretty much every campsite you go to will have some kind of barbecue for you to cook food. And it's the same for a lot of beaches that have tourist spots where people come.
I mean, that looks like waste bins. But I assume it's probably just lift the lid and there's your grill. But I mean, if I saw that where I live, we would see waste bins that were similar to that shape. And that's what I would think when I would in a million years not look at that and think it's a barbecue. Wow. And what do you like to fuel yours with? Are you charcoal or are you more of a Hank Hill propane kind of guy? Hank Hill from King of the Hill. Animated show. I don't know if you got that in Australia or not, but it was probably a North American joke.
Come in large numbers and they want to have food. So there's barbecues everywhere. This was something that Kel found really strange, and it wasn't the cultural norm in Brazil for you to go to camping grounds or to beaches and find places to just barbecue your own food. If you wanted to do that, you'd have to bring your own. BYO Barbie. In Australia, you don't have to. Number 6, and this is one that Brazilians always tell me whenever I meet them. Our secondhand culture in Australia is different from Brazil, probably elsewhere in the world as well. So what happens if I have a couch in my house that I don't want anymore? I don't just throw it out. I don't just give it away to friends, although, you know, you could do that if you wanted. Quite often what will be done is it'll be taken outside, put on the nature strip with some cardboard that says free. And so people know that if they see junk or chairs, TVs, furniture, all that sort of stuff, if they see that in the nature strip out the front of someone's house, they know that it's free. Someone can take that.
Okay. He's using a word there I'm not familiar with, nature strip. I'm trying to imagine, is that like your driveway comes out to the road, there's a sidewalk, and then between the sidewalk and the street, there's always, like here where I live, there's a bit of strip of grass, right? So there's the sidewalk, strip of grass, street. Or if you're out at the street, you're going street, strip of grass, sidewalk, and then it's your property. Is he referring to that little patch between the sidewalk and the street when he says that phrase? If so, I get it. I understand. Here we just say the curb. You put it to the curb. Where I live, if you put anything into the curb, once it hits the curb, it more or less becomes public property. People can rummage through your garbage anytime they want. And there's really nothing you can do about it. It's disgusting and nobody really does it, but they can. And oftentimes you'll see, like, we have like big cleanup weeks, right? We have a big spring cleanup week every year. And that's when everyone's throwing out a lot of their bulk stuff. And it'll all be out to the curb. And, you know, we have multiple garbage trucks coming through to help clean up all that big bulk stuff. But garbage week is a very popular week for people to be driving around looking for what everybody's throwing out and take it. I can't remember the last time I've done that. I think I saw a bike once a couple years ago, and I thought, hey, that'd be cool. I'll take that bike, take it home, clean it up. I'll have a little spare bicycle for my kids. But other than that, I mean, it's common. People do that here every year for cleanup week. But I have seen people put stuff out with a piece of cardboard that says free as well, free to take. So I've seen that. But yeah, that's it's certainly not the norm here. I will say that for sure. We have, of course, with the advent of Facebook. Facebook's been huge here for this. We have a Facebook page about free cycling. Where, you know, people who live in the area where I live in Corner Brook will be on that page, and they'll share if they got something they're giving away for free. They'll put it on there, and it's normally gone by the end of the day because most of the stuff that ends up there is pretty good stuff. I mean, my wife and I gave away a sectional couch there a couple years ago. It was in great shape. We just upgraded to a new, more modern couch set, so we gave away a sectional couch, and we didn't sell it. Maybe people have yard sales. They do sell stuff. They put stuff up on, you know, classifieds and things like that to sell it, but we like the free cycle stuff, and so we just kind of gave it away. It was gone 2 hours after we posted it on that Facebook page. So yeah, that's one of the ways we do it.
That it's free to a good home, that anyone can come and pick that up and take it home. And we do that all the time. A lot of the stuff that we have in our house is either bought secondhand online through places like Gumtree or Facebook, or we've seen it on the side of the road and thought, we don't want to waste that. We want to use it, so let's just bring it home and use it. So that's something you'll notice in Australia quite a lot. When you drive around the streets, there'll be furniture on nature strips, there'll be secondhand stuff, and it's free to be picked up. Number 7, drinking water from the tap. This was another one that shocked me quite a lot because it's something I take for granted, that the water in our water system that gets brought to our houses is drinkable. You can drink the water out of the shower, when you're having a bath, you can drink any of the water that comes out of the pipes in your house, generally, right? Should be all good. That is not the case elsewhere in the world. Quite often when I was traveling in Southeast Asia, that would definitely not.
So we actually have, similar to that, you know, we have chemicals that go in our water to keep it clean, to preserve it, including chlorine. But I think we all still use filters. We'll still drink. My dad drinks water right from the tap, always has, probably always will. He grew up with a well, a spring well, so you know there's that. But in my house, we don't tend to drink straight from the water. It does have a different taste to it. I think, you know, running through the pipes. I think some of the chemicals that are used to get, but it is safe to drink, perfectly safe to drink. Many do, I'm sure, but most of the people that I know either have a filter attached to the faucet in their kitchen, or they have a filter jug, like a Brita filter jug that they'll fill. So, I mean, yeah, we can as well, but we don't always.
not be something that foreigners like.
Oh, wait, look at that book behind him. Is that Cook? James Cook. So, okay, cool. Awesome. I can talk about this for a second. You got a book there on James Cook. Captain James Cook, who was well known for traversing the Pacific and all that kind of stuff. He did a lot of tours. He actually came to Corner Brook, where I live, before it was Corner Brook, before it was summer. He was a surveyor. In fact, he wasn't even a captain when he came here. He was a surveyor. And we have a site here called Cook's Lookout. It's one of the locations in which we believe that Cook was standing when he had designed his maps, which absolutely brilliant in creating maps. And yeah, the statue here doesn't depict him as a captain. It depicts him as a surveyor holding on to a sextant. So he's got a sextant out and he's standing up, kind of looking at the sextant. It's pretty cool. Join me on a virtual tour. I will be covering that one day in the next couple of months. I'll be doing a nice walk up and around Cook's Lookout. So you'll get to see the view and you'll get to see that statue. I just saw Cook behind his head there.
Like me should do, because we would quite often end up with sickness, end up on the toilet riding the porcelain throne for quite a few days with a digestive illness.
And no toilet paper.
Australia, it tends to be fine. We put chlorine in the water to kill everything. There's fluoride in there too for your teeth. So that was something that really shocked me. Elsewhere in the world, you may not be able to drink out of the taps. I know that in Brazil, they quite often have purifiers for their water right next to their sinks in their kitchens. In Australia, you won't see those things. There may be purifiers on the taps themselves, or people may have some kind of equipment in the fridge, you know, a jug that purifies the water. But generally, anywhere in Australia that has flowing water that comes out of taps, it's fine to drink, unless it says otherwise. Number 8, and I'm totally guilty of this, leaving things unlocked. So we live in Ocean Grove, which is a seaside town down the coast, about an hour and a half away from Melbourne. And quite often, I leave the doors unlocked in the house. I leave my car unlocked. It tends to be a very safe place. There's very little robbery, there's very little criminality taking place in Ocean Grove. Most places in Australia tend to be pretty safe, and you won't see things like massive locks on doors, grills protecting.
So that's the same thing here. Like, we don't see this, like these, you know, bars and grills over shops and stores. I don't know when the last time I locked my front door of my house was, to be honest with you. I mean, I guess a full disclosure, I do have cameras. I do have automatic locks, but I don't really use them, the locks. And the cameras only really used to check in on my kids from time to time if they're supposed to be tidying up, making sure they're doing their job, or if the parcel's been delivered, kind of a thing like that. But yeah, I mean, I go to bed at night, my doors are unlocked, car doors unlocked, unless my wife asks me to lock it because there's something in there she wants to make sure, just in case. We did have someone 6 years ago open up one of my car doors and take some stuff out from inside. Caught him on camera, everything was settled, but yeah, that did happen once. But once, since my wife and I have been living together for the last 22 years, that's not bad. It's a pretty good track record. But I did have a cousin, she's deaf, and I'm the family interpreter because I do know sign language, American Sign Language. And when she came here from the U.S., she lived in the U.S. for about 20 years. I mean, she locked her door all the time. Like, she'd be home, daylight, broad daylight, home in the house with her son, who wasn't deaf. He was a hearing child. And they'd be home and the front door would be locked. And I'd drop by for a visit and I'd go to open the door to walk in, as you do with family and friends. And nope, locked. And then, of course, I got to, video call her because she can't hear a knock. And she didn't have the doorbell set up with a light like a lot of hearing impaired people will have. So I had to video call her to tell her to come unlock the door and let me in. But she did that. She was here for 3 years before she moved back to the U.S. and always had that door locked. Always. Could not convince her she didn't need to lock it so much. But yeah, so I can see how that can be a culture shock for many. In other parts of Canada. I mean, I do live in Newfoundland. I live in a small town or city called Corner Brook. We are much safer here. But there are places in Canada that are very populated, and there are a lot more crime and a lot more of these instances where they will be locking their doors all the time. My mom, for instance, lives in Ontario, the biggest, most populated province, part of Canada. And yeah, her doors are always locked.
Windows and doors, and people leaving their cars and their houses unlocked. Don't get me wrong, I definitely lock it from time to time when I'm going away or I'm going out for a long period of time and no one's at home. But this was something that my wife Kel from Brazil found very strange. That,
but even then, like, I don't know. I don't know the last time I honestly locked my front door. I have a friend of mine who's from Ottawa, the capital city of Canada, who lives here now. He's my best friend I mentioned earlier that travels with me. He locks his doors much the same way still, even though he's been in Newfoundland for since 1997. He's been here, so a long time. But he still locks his doors, and it blows my mind. I find it very, very funny that people do that here. But and he stays at my house, and he'll lock the doors at my house from time to time, which throws everyone for a loop. We're all like, why is the door stuck? Is it? Oh, it's Bruno's here. The door's locked. So, but yeah, that's what I love about living here. It's so safe.
Would just leave doors open, or you would go to bed and have the gauze doors shut at night, which could just be opened to let air in. She would find that very strange that they would not be locked, and also that you wouldn't lock your car. Number 9, walking the streets at night. So when I met my wife, I was living in Melbourne, in North Melbourne, and quite often I would be busy during the day studying, and then I would go to the gym, I would go and do jiu-jitsu, I would come home, and at maybe 10 or 11 o'clock at night, I would go for a run, or I'd go for a walk, listen to a podcast, and just walk around the streets. I would walk through some of the parks, like Royal Park or Princes Park, and I'd be like, it's not a problem. That was a massive no-no for Kel. That was something that she would never, ever, ever do, because in Brazil, it's relatively unsafe to walk around by yourself.
I just noticed he has, what does it say? Papai te amo. Daddy, I love you. And that piece of paper. That's cute. But to comment on that right quick as well. Yeah, we can walk in the nighttime here. That's fine. Most places in Canada, it's fine to walk around at nighttime. There are some areas you want to keep an eye out for, depending on where you live. At nighttime, it's probably less safe, but still, it's pretty well safe. To walk around at nighttime. I'm noticing that in this culture shock, there's a couple of things that surprises me, but by and large, I think we are so much alike, Canada and Australia, especially in Newfoundland. I know we're much smaller as an island. Australia is huge, but I think our attitude, our mentality, we're a lot alike, and I love that.
At night, especially in places like parks where there's no light. So that was something that kind of shocked me as well. I was like, well, it's Australia. It's pretty safe here. You can sort of walk around anywhere and it's, you're fine. Obviously, we have our own fair share of crime, and sometimes bad things do happen to people, but usually you can walk around at night, especially in somewhere like a CBD, a city like Melbourne or Sydney, and you're perfectly safe. So that was something.
That's not what came to my mind when he said CBD.
Something that she found very strange. That was a big culture shock for her when she found out that I would sometimes go for a walk around midnight throughout Melbourne, throughout the parks, with music in my ears or listening to a podcast, for an hour or so, and it was no big deal. But yeah, there you go. Number 10, guys, the very last one for this episode in Australia is that there is very little rubbish or littering in Australia compared to a lot of other countries. Culturally, this is a big no-no. So I cringe every time I see someone smoking who throws their cigarette butt on the ground, because usually there's a bin within walking distance that they could just put the cigarette out and throw it in the bin.
And that's mostly the case here as well, although I have noticed that when spring hits, we'll often see garbage. I've seen this and I've gotten so angry. I've followed people to get mad at them, where they're driving in a vehicle and they throw empty cup out. Like they might throw something like this out their window. They just finished drinking it, don't want to leave it in the vehicle. So I've literally followed people and told them off for doing that. But that doesn't happen too often. We're a pretty clean place as well. But I get what he's saying about smokers dropping their butts down on the ground. I'm pretty sure there's a garbage nearby, a safe place to dispose of that if you just hold on for a moment.
Bin. The same with throwing newspapers or any kind of rubbish, bottles, whatever it is, on the ground. That tends to be a very big social no-no. You don't do that. You put it in the trash. We have bins all over the country, in parks, on streets, where you can throw your rubbish out. So in Australia, littering, it occurs, people definitely litter, but it is a social no-no. You will quite often be yelled at, or people will say something if you do that in front of people, okay? So that's it for this episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to let me know down in the comments below if you have another piece of cultural shock, another thing that shocked you about Australian culture when you came here, because I'm sure that I haven't included everything that is a bit shocking about Australian culture. So I'll see you in the comments, guys, and for everything else about Australia, Australian English, history and culture, make sure to subscribe to my channel, press the notification button, and also check out aussieenglish.com.au, where you'll get access to my podcast, my courses, and all my other content related to Australia.
All right. That's Aussie English. That was great. I love that. I love that obviously he compared mostly Australia to Brazil because that was kind of the thing. I didn't know that, but that's okay. I still learned quite a bit, a lot actually. A lot of things that make us similar, and some things, of course, that would be a cultural shock to me, especially the barbecue one. That one just, but yeah, and I had a couple of others too. But yeah, it's great. I want to know. Like he mentioned there at the end of his video, commenting down below. I want you to comment down below my video as well. Let me know what are some of the things that maybe you've traveled and you found it very surprising, or a bit of a cultural shock to you when you've traveled somewhere else. Maybe you've been to Canada. Maybe you've been to Newfoundland. What did you find was a cultural shock for you that made things different? I want to know in the comments down below. And maybe there's something about where you live that you think is unique. Let me know in the comments down below. I will do my best to reply to everyone that comments and share what I think about all of that as well, including what I think is a cultural shock if you do that. So thanks so much for watching with me. That was a lot of fun. I do love learning about Australia. I really hope you enjoyed that video with me. And if you did enjoy the video, please, 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 as always, make sure you certainly like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future upcoming videos. And of course, check out worldvirtualtours.online/Kevin, where you can come on a free virtual tour with me, all free. The next one, as I mentioned, is going to be kind of a webinar. It's about the indigenous people, the history of Newfoundland and Labrador. I'll be doing that on the 21st of August. So be sure to check out that as well if you get a chance. Otherwise, just sign up for future tours as they come. Other than that, I want to hear from you. I want to hear any suggestions on future videos. I've heard some already from the last couple of videos that I can't wait to look into and take a look at. I think my next video is going to be a bit of another kind of a different one from the path. It's going to be fun. I'm going to be reacting in the next video to some really fun things. I can't wait to go through some Australian humor, I guess, comedy, and looking forward to that. So that's going to be a lot of fun in the next video coming up. Folks, until next time, bye for now. Did you enjoy that video? Well, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you didn't miss out on any of our future videos. Also, check out this one right here. This was a good one. You might enjoy that one, or maybe that one there is more your style. Either way, check them out and enjoy.